it is a great honor and a privilege to introduce Miriam Freedman. Your maiden name was Eva Meinheimen, and you were born in Slovakia
Bratislava.
89 years ago. It's hard to believe.
I don't believe it myself.
And Miriam, your story is incredible, how you survived in hiding against all odds and how you managed to survive the Shoah, the Holocaust. If you could tell us a little bit about your incredible family and your journey.
Well, I tell you just short history. My family originally, I think, came from Spain, and they left Spain in 1492 during the Inquisition. What I was told, they went via Holland to Slovakia. And there, I believe they lived about 300 years. And my father, this was my mother's family, was Paškus, Gitl Joseph Paškus, and my father's family, I believe they came originally from Germany, from a city called Mannheim, because in those days most people's family name were related to where they came from. So my father's family, I believe, came from there, and his parents' name was Moshe Mannheimer and Gitl Mannheimer. Originally he was a fisher. My grandmother's name was a fisher. We lived in Slovakia for many years. As I said, we were a family of 6 children. My father came from a big family, one of 12, and my mother's family came one of 7. And my father was eventually, what I found out, he was in textile business, international textile business. I think it was so international, probably was European, because I believe he used to go to Yugoslavia and Austria and places like that. And we had a very happy, harmonious life. We were a comfortable family. I even had a Jewish nanny. And to tell you about my family is, as I said, up to a certain age, my life was nice. And here's a photograph of my father and my mother. This is my only brother, who was here possibly 4 or 5 years old. I haven't got record. And this only thing I have as a child. I had another photograph of my brother when he was grown up. And this was my late brother, who was a bit of my hero, because we were so many women in our family. It was only my father and my brother. Here he was about 16 years old, yes. And that last time, I think they took the photograph as a passport or some kind of identity ID. This is my sister, Naomi, who was the 3rd one in the family. Sorry, 4th. There was Barbara, there was Marty, there was Edith, and this was Naomi. And here is the only picture I have of her, and she perished in the Holocaust.
Do you know where she died?
Well, she was in Hungary, I believe she was in Hungary at that time. And the thing of there was a march of Hungarian Jews were marching somewhere, and she's perished on the journey. This is a photograph me, my sister Edith, and my sister Naomi, this one. And me, I was the youngest in the family. Edith, Naomi and Eva. Edith was caught and taken to a concentration camp. I can't remember which one, but she survived. And she died about 3 years ago in Israel, in a kibbutz near David, where she used to live. But my middle sister died on a march, or we don't know exactly. And this is me, I who survived. I'm telling the story.
And how was he killed?
Well, the story I have got idea, but what they tell us, He was in a he was in Mauthausen, where my late father was, and he was about 16-year-old, quite strong young man, and they kept him in a prison camp because they were planning to have exchange of prisoners at time between the Germans and the Russian. That's what I was told. But he survived till 3 days before the liberation of the Russian occupation, because apparently the guard who looked after them were panicking and killed all the inmates. Slaughtered them all.
And your one sister, Barbara, she moved to Palestine.
So this is my elder sister, Barbara Obracha. She left Slovakia in 1939 with the organization called Maccabi Hatzair. She was a sportswoman, and she was one of the lucky ones in her family. She went via Trieste, the last transport to Palestine.
So Miriam, if I can ask, what is one of the earliest recollections that you have growing up?
Well, I got certain recollections as a child. As I said, I was youngest. I was spoiled by my late father and my mother, and we used to have some very happy childhood outing. We in Slovakia, even we were a very Orthodox family, there were a lot of restaurants on Shabbat open if you prepaid your meal. I don't know exactly what we're eating. So my father used to, after synagogue, sometimes as a family, we were going on an outing to eat our lunch. And also I remember going for walks. The new River Danube was in Bratislava. And we had some family outing. We also had an auntie who lived in a village called Vyčapy in Slovakia. And she had a farm. And we used to go there on holidays, a very happy one. They had animals, and geese, and horses, and chickens. It was I had quite a happy childhood. And then, of course, as went by, things changed. We were not able to go to school.
The school you went to, was it a public school or a Jewish school?
Jewish school. No, there wasn't anything like that. We all went to Jewish schools.
And you kept a very traditional family?
Very strong family. Oh yes. Well, this is the only picture I've got, and you'll have to find me somewhere in the back. This was taken, I presume, in 39, I may have been about 4 or 5 year old. And I was in the school. This was a Jewish school. There were 60 children in the school. The teacher is in the corner there. And this is what somebody must have found it. I don't know how she handled 60 children, but I remember she was very, very strict. I was very afraid of her. What I remember of her is, I think I was left-handed. And my teacher was always hitting me, putting the pencil in my right hand, so I can manage both right and left. Maybe it's good or bad, I do not know. But she was a very strict teacher.
And did you have a lot of friends in the school?
I can't really recollect so many friends, because I had a sister who was year and a half older than me, and I had the cousins, and I don't think we was customary when I was 5, 6 years old to play with. I can't recollect really. I do remember possibly with a girl we used to skipping rope and hopscotch sort of games, but I cannot recollect any of them, except, to be honest, yes, I do remember a friend. Her name was Gerda, and we remained in touch with her till after the war, and she went to Australia in 46 or something. Yes, I do remember vaguely. I even got a photograph of her.
And Miriam, do you remember the holidays or Shabbat?
Well, of course, Shabbat was very special, and we used to go to synagogue always. First we lived in a Hochstrasse and a proper integrated street, but eventually we had to move to what is called the Judenstrasse, to another area, and there, of course, our standard of living completely changed. So we had still 2 rooms flat there for a while. And what I remember, as I said, holidays, it wasn't that kind of thing, that holiday. We used to go to the farm of my auntie. That was a highlight for a month or so during the summer. We absolutely loved that. She had a very, very, very big farmhouse because we were a big family. Obviously, she had enough room for all of us. I think they owned the whole village anyway. It wasn't just a farmhouse. She was a landlord. So that was very, very lovely for us.
And your parents, they were very loving, and you had a very close connection with your siblings?
Well, I was very spoiled, but we had a very loving family. My father was very affectionate. Also, he was much at home because he was at the business trips. But both of them were very, very loving. And I always think that I was the apple of his eyes. But I'm not sure because I'm talking about myself. But I'm sure he loved all of us. He was a very lovely man. And I remember going on these trips. What was those days not common to bring me banana and fruit. It wasn't very common in Slovakia those days, orange or apple yet, but banana and orange was not very common in Czechoslovakia in 1940s. But he used to bring us whatever he could to all of us, I presume. I had a loving, loving family, the older family. I was the youngest, so I was very spoiled.
And Miriam, do you remember when things started to change, when the war started?
Of course. When I started feeling the change, when my father used to go away on a trip and come back, I used to hear Mum and Father always talking secretly. And so very careful the children should not know about it. So he already heard something is going on. And so I used to ask them, but of course the child, they wouldn't tell me. They never said anything bad to us. But the secret started developing, and so it was obvious that they announced that we have to move from our comfortable flat to another area, what was the Judenstrasse. There our standard of living was very changed, and life completely different. Also, my mother was still trying to keep us together, and my father, but they put shutters on the windows, because the hooligans started going around throwing bottles and drinks, empty bottles, alcoholic bottles. So I do remember that slowly we were told not to go out in the street, to be more careful when we talk to anybody. But I also remember that a lot of people disappeared who we knew. So my father, I used to ask, where are these people, that people? And obviously they disappeared. Or they were kidnapped, or they were transported, we don't know. But life changed a lot. The most worst thing happened when we had to, Bratislava had a decree, Jews are not allowed to live in the capital anymore, and confiscated my father's bank account. So our life changed very quickly. I don't know if he had some account, he must have had some cash obviously, but I don't know what amount. So we left Bratislava to a town called Nitra, where my family lived. And we moved to a 2-room flat as well, where we stayed there for quite some time.
You have in your book a picture of the castle.
Under the castle we had to live. This is the castle of Nitra Castle. Below the Nitra Castle we used to live. This is called the Nitra Castle, and we lived there. But not in the castle, below the castle.
There was a very famous yeshiva in Nitra.
For sure. It was very interesting thing to tell you. We did not live in Jewish quarters. We lived in Nitra, what was 3,000 people lived there. It was very famous yeshiva and a Jewish area. But the Jewish area was called Vatican. I never can get over it. There must have been symbolically of something. The Jewish quarter was called Vatican. There was a synagogue, slaughterhouses, yeshiva, school, everything was in the Vatican. It's very strange when I went back after the war because it wasn't there anymore. Well, it's a change. The town completely changed. So it was, and also I remember as a child, but occasionally we had visitors, and I think they went to a kind of a pub, they call it kochma, to buy some drinks. And also was a kiosk where they used to sell cigarettes. And they always sent me the little girl to go and buy it. And I could never understand why they're sending me to buy, because the adults were afraid they would be bashed around. So as a child, they wouldn't probably do me so much harm. So I remember those incidents. I remember one man came to us and he said, if you're going to get me in a kiosk a packet of cigarettes, when I come on my next visit to your family, I go to bring you a doll. But I bought the cigarettes, but I'd never seen him again. That was possibly was taken away or caught somewhere, I do not know. I did not know the political in and out because I was too young to understand. I do know that there was fear and standard of living changed, food wasn't scarce. I think our family in Nitra may have helped us because they were a comfortable family. And I would not know the ins and out, but I know that I couldn't go to school. That was forbidden. And my neighbors wouldn't play with me because they called me a dirty Jew.
Was this the first time that you personally experienced anti-Semitism?
Yes, it was the dirty Jew and you killed Jesus. This I can remember as a child. And I remember because I was a bit of a rebellious child and a very high-spirited child, I said, how could I kill somebody? I never met him. I was so innocent. And they themselves probably heard it from the parents. How would they know about it? They must have heard it from the parents. They shouldn't play with me.
And these were Slovakian children?
Neighbors. So we used to play in a street with a skipping rope and jumping around, like children play around. Yes, no. Also we had a little river nearby called River Nitra, where we used to go as children swimming in a river, but that was also forbidden.
And what did you speak at home? Was it, did you speak?
Okay, yes, well, my parents, we spoke 3 languages at home. German, Hungarian and Slovak. I didn't study it, but of course I heard it. I went to Slovakian school, also was Jewish school later also. We spoke Slovakian, but I think that I heard my mother's family spoke more Hungarian, my father's side more German, so we were speaking 3 languages in our home. So when people ask me today, how do you speak 5 languages? I say, well, this was the way I was brought up. But then I was living in Israel. I learned Hebrew. I live in England. I love English. I love a bit Italian. Obviously, for people, when you tell them you speak 5 languages, they think that you must be linguistic, but I'm not. It's just circumstances created I speak 5 languages.
And Miriam, when did your family decide that they're going to go into hiding?
Oh, that was terrible. The decree came out one day. A curfew was starting to come. 6 o'clock, Jews are not allowed to go out in a street. So obviously Star of David you have to wear. I didn't. I was a rebel child. I have to tell you about that. I was very rebellious. Everybody had to have a Star of David and stitched on your clothes. But they were smaller and bigger, and I always had the smaller one, and I pinned it on. I don't know my mother let me do it, because it was quite dangerous what I was doing. But when I went out of the building where we lived, I took it off. I always wanted to be like everybody else. I can't understand that I had this courage to do, but it proves that later on I told you how we survived because of this willing to live. And I always had this thing that I have to do some work in my life. And it was like ingrained in me. I was a rebel, simple enough. So when I used to visit my uncle and aunt, the same thing. I came to them without the Star of David. They said, no, you must not go out without the Star of David. I said, why? Nobody knows me. But it was a small town. People knew each other quite well. And they also used to send me to a grocery to do some shopping. Again, children were always safer to do things because they didn't hit us yet. But adults were in danger. My late father and my brother used to go to the synagogue, to the Vatican for Podzamska ulica where we lived. And they had to go through alleyways. And they were hit by hooligans quite often.
Because they were Jewish?
Well, of course, because we were Jewish. But what is amazing of that time, I wish I did very hard. There was a guide. The Jewish people had a Jewish boxer. His name was Duffy. And he was kind of like a golem of Prague. He was kind of a savior of the Jews. And when Jews were attacked, he appeared from nowhere and attacking the Gentile, helped the Jewish yeshiva bocher and students of people from synagogue. He appeared and disappeared. He has got such a high profile in the Jewish community. His name was Duffy. And then, of course, he disappeared. And somebody said he's in England. When I got to England, I tried to find him out, that he lived in Oxford. I chased him, but I didn't find him. So I don't know what happened to him. But he was kind of a savior of the Jew. We called the golem of Bratislava or Nitra.
Did you ever meet him?
Yeah. But that's the reason I was very little. He was big, strong, and my family and everybody adored him. He was really a savior to the point till he was. What happened to him, I do not know.
And the decision to go into hiding, how did that come about?
Well, what happened, I started to tell you about the Cree. My father lost his job. My father lost all his savings. So he did any job he could find, and he worked in a brick factory. What on the other side of the river, Nitra. So he used to go there, just to earn something to survive. Obviously we were eating very basic food, but we had to eat something, beans and bread and local vegetables, something. So he was working there and going every day to the brick factory and come back. No. When the decree came out one day, at particular time, all the Jews have to segregate in an area, a center of the town. So we couldn't contact my father. My sister Tova, or Edith, she was trying to find out what's going on. And my mother got hold of me and my sister, and we started, somehow she must have known my uncle, who worked in a mill, who was an accountant, and he had friends there, that he's somewhere in a building in the mill. So my mother went to look for my late father, and when we got, I remember very clearly, to the river, for the little bridge to cross the river, he said, if you cross the river, no guarantee you can come back. So my mother decided not to go. She didn't know what to do. So she was panicky. She was left with two little girls and walking up and down the street near the mill. And somebody was shouting, Olga, Olga. That was my late mother's name. One of the sisters saw us from the window, but first we were on the ground floor flat, then we moved upstairs to second floor, and she said, come in, so we went in. And there we went in a hiding. But we couldn't contact my father, we could not contact my sister, who older, she was about 14-year-old, or 13-year-old. She went to find out the news, what's going on. Of course, she was caught. And she went first, she told us, because she survived the Holocaust, she went to hide in a haystack in a field. Well, how long can you hide there? So when she came out to look for some food or drinking something, she was caught and deported. But because she was quite developed for her age, she was between 13 and 14-year-old, she said when she was caught that she's 16, because there was a rumor going out, if you're 16-year-old, you may be sent to a labor camp. So she was probably between 13 and 14, and she went to a labor camp. Then my late father, so we were put into the flat with all this, my 3 aunties, my uncle, and 3 children. So we're 1, 2, 3, 5 of us, and 3 children in that little room.
Who were the children?
Me, my sister, and my cousin. And my father possibly came back and looking for us. And I will never understand, and it took me a long time to come in term why he didn't come into the flat, because we saw him passing the building. It disturbed me as a child a lot because I adored my father, and we never seen him afterwards. So obviously he was taken. But we saw him coming probably from his work or something, and passed. He may have also knew something that we are in that mill, and was also shouting, "Olga, Olga," one day. And my mother wanted to go out, and my uncle said, "Don't go out, because I can't guarantee." They were afraid that somebody will see us. I appreciate that, but it was still very sad or tragic to not to see my father again. So then the caretaker of that building said, "It's too dangerous for you to be on the ground floor." So he moved us to the second floor flats, so less visible, not next to the window. But what the caretaker done, who was absolute genius, he changed the lock. What saved our life? He changed the lock of the door, because this flat belonging to the mill workers. So everybody had a little bedsitter or a little flat who worked in a mill. So the woman may have been, who lived in a flat, or man, and moved her to another town, and so they had to change the lock. If she comes back, she can't get into a flat. But we haven't got details of that. But we know that this saved our life, because we moved to the second floor flat, where we're staying all of us silently. But we must remember, they were below a flat, on the side, it was 3-floor flat. So we were not allowed to talk, not walk, nothing. But no shoes, not moving, but possibly still somebody downstairs or upstairs felt some movement. So we were there for some time. One neighbor was told about us, and he sent his family away to a country, because he was worried that they will find out as well. He knew only one neighbor, but we never met him. He knew about us. So what happened was this: the caretaker used to come upstairs nighttime, feeding us. And if there was any laundry to take, but I don't think there was much, because I was wearing during the whole war the same thing. I never remember changing anything, a winter or summer, but mainly it was autumn when we were that time taken. And what happened was this: as I said, we had this little cellar. Every continental flat had a cellar where they used to keep jams or suitcases or other things. He carved a hole within the cellar. It was a bit of a space, a wall, and there we were hiding, very tiny, like sardines, or sitting on top of each other. Not all the time, because the soldiers used to come in downstairs to exercise. There was a gym. They turned the room next to us a gym, And when they finished with the exercise, we could come out, sit still in a cellar, but not going upstairs. And when he heard the soldiers went training somewhere else, they took us upstairs. It was a little more comfortable. We were absolutely better off being caught, really better. We were nearly sure we were going to be caught. So the caretaker told us one day, doesn't know what somebody must have told in the block of flats to somebody, informed somebody, there are Jews here. And the officials came to the flat and decided they are going to test every single apartment till they're going to find them. So the caretaker said, no, I cannot take you down. Because he brought about 20 soldiers, on all of this, on the staircase were soldiers, so there was no possibility to move down to the basement. We only could move to the basement nighttime when nobody was around.
Miriam, were these German or Slovakian soldiers?
Well, they were German and Slovakian. The German Slovakian was the Hlinka Guard, cooperating with Germans. This time were Germans as well.
And what year was this?
I think it was 43, 44. Must be 44 because the liberation was 45 as well.
And how old were you at this time?
I must have been about 9, 9-year-old, I think. So, the close of being caught, we were saved twice. I forgot to tell you, first time when we were living still in a block of flats, there was a Hlinka guard. I mentioned that he was a friend of the family. Why was he friend of his fiancée? His fiancée was apprenticed to my aunt. In those days, all members of family had a profession, so-called, not academic. One was a dressmaker, one was a hat maker, one was a corset maker. One of my aunties had training some women to do corsets. The Hlinka's girl fiancé was working with my aunt. And he made up his mind he's going to save us. Now, how can he save us? We were in a flat in Podzamska ulica 28. He declared with a doctor, a Jewish doctor, he was a friend of the Jews, that there is a typhus in this family. And if you take this family away, typhus is epidemic. It is contagious. It's contagious. If you take them on a train to transport it wherever to, the train all will get it, and on the other side they will find only corpses. So they took us to the transport to be deported. That was the first time we were deported, to be taken away from our place to the railway station, and there the certificate was can you stop for me? Okay. When we moved to Yitra, we lived in this place. I think 3 or 4 families lived in kind of a small cottages, you call it, but I wouldn't call it cottage, it was smaller. And this was between 41 and 44. And I found this picture after the war. I went to see it. Why they didn't demolish this building? They could have demolished it, but they didn't, because they found out that the owner of the building may be alive and come back. So they couldn't demolish it. But we had one of the flats here. This was a 1-bedroom flat. And there's another one. Another one.
And when you went back, do you remember? The memories?
Well, in a way, vaguely, yes, I did remember, because I went back first time in the 70s during the communist regime, because my uncle and aunt, who you saw before, stayed. They didn't leave. We left, but most of us left to Palestine. Oh, first Palestine, then became Israel. We left in 46. My mother, me and my sister. So we were 4 of us living. Tova, Edith, me and my mother. We left Slovakia to go because our sister, who was already in Palestine, sent us the affidavit permit. So we went immediately because there was not much point to stay. We found out my father's dead, my mother's...
Do you know what happened to your father?
Not exactly. I went back to Mauthausen to look. No, obviously he was murdered. He was a strong man. He was a healthy-looking man. We found they gave us a birth certificate. He had a heart attack. Obviously, very likely he had a heart attack, but I think he was murdered. And my brother as well, in Mauthausen. It was one of the worst concentration camps you can imagine.
So this is in a picture you have of the apartment by the mill.
Yes, well, when we were hiding first time, when we were walking up around the street, this is a building where we were hiding first on the first floor, then on the second floor, and in the basement. We couldn't stay on the first floor for too long because the caretaker started getting worried. He wasn't all that keen to save all of us. He really wanted to help only my uncle and aunt, because Gavalovich was accounted together with my uncle. But we were in the building somehow for money. At that time, my uncle still had money. And obviously, they must have paid him quite heavily to the caretaker.
And here we have a picture of...
Yes. But give me the other one, because the other one is... Okay. Well, this is... And, you know, the other family. No, this one here. So this is a photograph of the young couple, Helena Gavalova and William Gavalovich, who he was an accountant. That time they were engaged to get married. And here they are at the wedding day. My uncle, this was taken possibly in the early 40s. This is my uncle. And this is a young couple here. And my uncle is here, and the other one is the director of the company, of the mill. So here, this is a building we were hiding. And you will see soon picture on the cellar. First downstairs and upstairs, one bed sitter. Everybody who worked in a mill outside the city used to get a bed sitter.
Here we have pictures of the cellar. It's incredible.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah. But you haven't shown really the most dangerous one, because have you got another one of the cellar where this is full of things, but show me? No, the cellar, no, the real picture of the cellar, I can't, okay, but it's difficult one because, yeah, I got it. This is a cellar where we were living in a second block of flats, and a room, 8 of us, one room, a toilet, and a little entry hall. In the living room was a gas ring where they used to possibly cook something. And this is the cellar basement, the cellar where the caretaker carved a hole. You probably can see it. Not very big. 8 people like sardine hiding. And we also must point out that all the women were quite tall. 5'6", 5'7". They were not little women. There were 4 women, 1 man, and 3 children in this hall. Now, this is, as a moment, as it looked like they're using it as a moment I went to see it. This was 43 till 45, up and down, and they're using it as a storage, the little hole.
So it still exists. It still existed when you went to see it. It was still there.
I went to see it, yes. I went to see it in 73, and this is storage. And I went to see it as well as an adult in 1997. Just shows you, as an adult, I can't believe that we had to go in, 8 of us in it. I can't believe it. I hardly could go in now when we went to see it.
And Miriam, how was your reaction when you went back and you saw the place where you spent so much time, that all the memories start?
Well, I tell you the truth, that as a child, when you grow, you block. I was completely in a state of denial after the war. I didn't talk about the Holocaust to anybody for nearly 50 years. Also, my children kept saying, "Mommy, you got an accent." And I used to say, "Got an Israeli accent." But that somehow gave away that I was not British. They were born here. So I had an accent. And so my children didn't ask too many questions. Also, they didn't teach so much in school with the little ones. But gradually I was telling them. But of course, after, when they were a bit older, 12, 13-year-old, my late husband tried to shield them from the past. They didn't want to be brought up as a children of a Holocaust survivor because they wanted them to have a normal life. They went to school, they had interests, hobbies, music. So we didn't talk very much. My husband knew. I didn't talk about it myself. You see, when you came out of that place from the Holocaust, we all wanted to rebuild our life. I went to school. I was in boarding school for 5 years, and I got a scholarship in Jerusalem to study. I became a kindergarten teacher, junior teacher. I was teaching. I went to the Israeli army. You never think about the Holocaust that time. It only came to me later on.
Miriam, here you have pictures, I think, later on where...
Yes. I went to see my uncle and aunt who were in hiding with me, and they stayed in Slovakia. Okay?
What were their names?
Ella and Miklos Fischer. Ella was my mother's sister. She stayed in Slovakia, we can't understand why, with my other uncle, Tivadar. They stayed in Slovakia. It's very strange, but that's the way it is.
You have a picture in your book of Ella and Miklos Fischer. And they stayed after the war in Slovakia?
Yes, they stayed in Slovakia. It's very difficult for us to understand. Everybody left Slovakia who could. We never understood. Miklos got his position back. He wasn't so old yet. He got back his job as an accountant in his mill. I had a flat. He stayed. And he suffered terribly a lot under communism as well. But he stayed when we left in 46. He didn't want to come with us that time. Most Jews left who could. I don't know what happened. But this photograph, when I went to visit them in 1972, we went back to the flat where we used to live before the flat that you saw completely destroyed with another. No, this was after that. We moved here when we came back from the war. Survived. Here I was my Auntie Ella on front of our flat. I went to see it, 1972.
And was it very emotional when you went back?
Tremendously emotional because I only went back. I would never go back. I only went back because my uncle and aunt were very close to us and they saved my life. And of course I went back with suitcases of things because I never would know how to thank them. There was no way to thank them that what they've done for us. Due to Miklos and Ella, we survived because he worked in the mill and he knew the people in the mill and the caretaker. We wouldn't have survived.
If it wasn't for them.
Well, he was the instigator, the rescuer of the two Gentile family, but he was friend of the accountant. Otherwise, how could we survived?
And I just want to show, in this book, in your book, you have an arrow. The entrance to the basement hiding place is marked with the arrow, so we can see. And it was so small. The cellar that you went in.
I tell you what, 4 foot by 6 foot or something like that.
So here is inside the hiding place, and you write in your book that it was just 6 feet by 8 feet.
Something like that.
Which is nothing. It's so small. It's tiny.
How are you? 5 foot 6, 7, 8. I don't know. When I went there, I hardly could get in as an adult when I went in. And how did they were all tall people. I believe they were top of each other like sardines.
And Miriam, can I ask, what did you do during the day when you were in hiding?
Well,
how did you keep yourselves occupied?
The problem was a toilet as well. We had a bucket. There was a bucket. I tell you the truth, I told somebody I never remember going to the toilet. I can't remember it.
Because you had to be so quiet. You had to... The people in the gym, they could have heard.
Well, we were in that hall, not all the time, only when the soldiers were coming out. When they went away, we moved out, and there was a bucket. You remember that they used to have down there in a cellar, not in a cellar, in a basement, a central heating system with coal and for the whole building. In Slovakia there was already central heating and double glazing in the 40s. No, not like Europe. When I tell people that I was brought up in a double glazing house, central heating and intercom, when you want to come to the house you have to press the bell to be opened. Slovakia was a Czech Republic. Slovakia was very advanced country. Czech Republic more than Slovakia. Slovakia was more an agriculture area, while in Czech Republic there was more like industry, glass and artwork.
You also have a picture where I think your parents...
Yeah, this is what... Yeah. Now here I was born. Shall I to put it the best way to... Now this is... My parents lived in this place, in this house.
You can see it's a magnificent house. It was...
Well, it's list. You are not familiar with the expression listed building?
Protected.
Preserved.
Preserved.
It has to be preserved. We lived in a listed building. They cannot destroy it. Even under communism, well, bombs could destroy it. But this is, my mother lived and my father lived in this building, Hochstrasse 31 was called. The name of the street was Hochstrasse 31. We lived upstairs. So that when we went to see it, well, 95, Righteous Gentile, all our family went there. I will have to show you a photograph. Everybody went there. We went to that place. Of course, I don't remember it. I was a baby, but we lived there. I didn't remember it, but my other member of my family knew about it, so we went to see this building. Was still beautiful. But the gate, they were repairing the building, you can see. I'm sorry we didn't have video cameras, things like that yet. So you took photos. This is where I was born. Here where my parents lived. It's called Hochstrasse 31 in Bratislava.
And Miriam, do you remember when you were in hiding, the food that you ate? Or did you have enough food to eat? Or
well,
did you go
in
hungry?
hiding, it was very, of course we didn't have any kosher food or anything like that. We were eating, I remember, stodgy food. Whatever was given to us, I never wanted to eat. I didn't like the food, but I was forced to it because I had to survive. We got all kind of stews, and Slovakia is an agriculture country. There was some kind of something kohlrabi, carrots. We had something like that, but proper food, I don't remember breakfast, lunch and dinner. We had once a day something to eat, was good enough. At least we were not starving. We had something to eat, but I was under 4 stones. I remember I was very, very thin after the war. I was very, very undernourished. Did I not show you the photograph of after the war? I don't know if
after the
I
war?
found one.
You did?
I just sure I gave it to you. I
And
had
Miriam, can I ask?
there may be an album. I got the album there.
During this time when you were in hiding, did you play with your sister, or did you learn anything? Did your mother? How did you
we see
keep
what
occupied?
I remember when we were in the flat. Helena and Maria, they used to bring some women magazines. What they read, I brought something for my aunties and my mother to read. And I remember I could read already. I remember that because I went to school before that. So I was reading romance, things, story of women magazines. But talking, we're not allowed to talk. Place, there was nothing. We were just sitting in a place. That's the reason my leg was swollen. I did not mention a very incident. Dully, the daughter of the caretaker, came to see me. The caretaker said to me, I'm going to bring a present to you, Miriam, over Christmas. And he brought his little daughter, Dully, to play with me. And he wanted me to talk to another child. And I don't know what I got to say to her, because she was out and I was in. All I remember to her is, when the war is over, I will going to race you so fast I'm going to run that you will never able to catch me. But the truth was, because of lack of movement and the circulation didn't work, my leg was swollen. I couldn't walk. I could not talk about running. Eventually, after a few months, things become more normal.
Did you ever manage to go outside to have sunshine? Did you ever go?
No.
So you were indoors for how long?
All the time.
How many months was it?
Well, it's so difficult to say because it's on and off going on. 44, 45 definitely, on and off in hiding, because, as I said, we were living in a deprived situation, but sometimes we could move around a little bit. But when it's really the decrease coming out, Jews are not to lose, move out. No, I don't remember going anywhere. No sunshine or anything like that, not at all.
And Miriam, that miracle when the soldiers came and the caretaker, he wouldn't... Can you repeat that miracle? Because it's incredible.
Well, this is, as I said, you're quite good. The 2 miracles. One we were saved through declaring the doctor we got typhus. So we were sent back to our apartment and they put the placards in the door. There's typhus in this house and nobody's allowed to come in. And so that was, in a way, a savior. The second time, when we were in the building, when the German was tipped off, there are Jews here, it was quite unbelievable. We couldn't go down to the basement anymore. We were sitting in a flat, And as I said, the caretaker, I don't know how he switched off the old key. He put on the old key, because if he had the real key, he would have been able to open the door. And we could hear the Nazi, the officer going to next door, even can hear the sounds. When he came out, we were just holding out, praying. And all of a sudden we hear rustling, but nobody comes in. Again the door was rattling, and we can hear a voice talking, and that was the official, the German, with the caretaker, saying, if you want to open the door, we have to get some equipment, some hammers to break the door. And the official German was so drunk, he couldn't remember anymore. When he took him downstairs, he forgot all about it.
Such a miracle.
That's a miracle.
Because if they would have opened, it would have been the end.
No, we all did, all finished. Not only us.
And the caretaker as well.
The caretaker as well. So his life was as much in danger as ours. But remember, the rescuer would have been killed equally as us, because there were decreased loudspeaker in the city. Anybody hides the Jews, doesn't give him up, his life is in danger. And if first they offer the money to the people who had the Jews, but afterwards he said, anybody hides the Jews, their life is in jeopardy.
So you remember hearing these announcements?
Yeah, every day. We could hear all the time the loudspeaker.
Was
all
it
the time.
in Slovakian? Or?
In Slovakian, yeah. We could hear it. It's a small town, the loudspeakers were all over the place. We could hear it all the time.
And did you ever feel like giving up at any time?
We have no choice. It was about the caretaker and the Gavalovich. These two people could have given up. But if they knew they give us up, they are taken away as well. And they had families. Gavalovich didn't have any children, was newly married. But the other one, Duli, the daughter, and their mother lives there, the grandmother. So the caretaker did it for themselves as much as for ourselves, not to give us away. But they really took a very great risk, really risk to save us.
A tremendous risk. It's
a miracle. And after the war, I went to see them. I spent time with them. I always called them my parent, mother, father, Duli, my sister, up till 80 something. I went to Slovakia because I had probably rheumatism arthritis. I went to the famous spa in Slovakia, you know. So I used to go to Slovakia to a place called Piešťany, the very famous for a spa, where my late father was born. My grandparents were there living as well. That's another story. I went to visit the house where my grandfather was born. You heard about Seaman? They took over the building. It was a nice house because we had 12 children, so they had a pretty good big house, but they modernized it. And went to see that house where my father and grandparents used to live.
And if I can ask, Miriam, do you remember when the war ended?
Yes.
With the liberation?
Yes. That was also horrendous. That was thank you for asking that. We saw a lot of planes, bombing going on, plane. So then we were tipped by the caretaker, the Russians are coming. So the Russians were our liberators. There's no question. Then we were still in the cellar hiding, not in that hole, but in the cellar. And a Russian official walks into the cellar with the caretaker. Then we found out the caretaker did save us for ideological reasons. He was a communist. But we did not know he wasn't. Ideologically he wanted to save us as well. Not only because he believed in some kind of equality, you know. A Russian official or officer walked in and saw the skeletons more or less. We were so thin, sitting there. And didn't know who we are. We were told not to speak German, because everybody spoke German. They came in and they told us, this official, do not go out. There are too many Russian souls hungry for women. if any of you come out, you may be all raped. Because they didn't see a woman for ages. It was in the army. When they passed our river Nitra, tiny little river, they saw the in Volga. They saw the in Russia. They were not very educated soldiers. So they told us not to get out of the cellar till the time is right. What really happened, nearly every woman was raped, old and young. After a few months, every woman was pregnant practically, because these soldiers have not seen a woman. They occupy every place they occupied, they had a sexual relationship with women. So, that I do remember quite well. I was there, and the Russian, when we were allowed to come out from the cellar, there was some kind of barbecue they were doing, the soldiers. And we had a clock, and those a clock that used to make a sound. And they started shooting at it. They were so frightened because it made a sound. Tick, tick, tick. So, you know, they were so basically uninformed about anything, the soldiers. And we were quite afraid of them. But they didn't harm us, because we didn't come out of the cellar immediately. It took a little time till we got order from the caretaker, it's safer to get out of the cellar, because all my aunties were quite young and good-looking young women. You saw photographs. So they were in danger, very much in danger.
And then what happened a few months afterwards?
Well, once afterwards, we stayed there, and then my auntie, one of my auntie, had a house, and we went to stay with her. It was empty. That wasn't bombed. And they opened an office in our city called UNRWA, United Nations kind of organization, and they were informing everybody who survived or died and so on. So my mother were going down there, and they also helped us financially, or we got food parcel from them as well. And they notified that my father and brother was murdered, father, brother and sister, and one of my sisters survived. And you will hear the story of how my sister survived from the concentration camp. She came, was a horrendous experience. They were all unshaven in the camp, and it was cold, getting winter, October. She put on what she could. She found a German officer jacket to keep herself warm. And she managed to get to our town, to her home, and the UNRWA told us probably where we are, and she knocks on the door, and I went to open the door, and I slammed the door on her, because she was unshaven, I couldn't recognize. I said to her, another German officer is here. She said, Edith, that was her name. Then we realized that who she was. She was only a few months older, a year older, and she survived.
Which camp was she in?
Unfortunately, I do not know. I only can say one thing, what she told us. I'm sorry to say, but maybe I can ask her daughter who lives in Israel. I can't remember, but what I do know, she was in a camp. There were a lot of Yugoslavian prisoners, and she spoke German, my sister. That saved her. She was kind of an interpreter. Yugoslavian wasn't unfamiliar, it's quite a Slavish language, and we could understand. And she told us the guards used us as an interpreter. So if the Yugoslavian people had to be taught, so she didn't speak Yugoslavian, but she understood a bit, and she was telling us that sometime after she helped somebody, they gave us a meal or something. But when she came back, she was very fat. Why? She was in one of the camp. People think she was maybe in a Theresienstadt, because it's the only camp I was told, I'm not sure, I never asked her. She was, no, but it wasn't there actually, but she was there possibly sometime. She was, because she told us the Red Cross came. A Red Cross, apparently I heard, used to go to Theresienstadt. Maybe other comes as well, I do not know. I would not know about that. So, she just told us the Red Cross came, and they all were quite fat. So they realized they got injection to blow them up. So they chose that, and the Germans, they are not starving them. But and she was never very okay since then. I don't know what they used on them. And she got to Israel and she joined a kibbutz and had a very happily marriage.
And when you saw her and your mother saw her, you must have been very emotional.
It was tremendous emotional. And my mother particularly, because at least one of them came back, you know, where her son didn't come back, and the daughter didn't come, her husband doesn't come back. My mother was about 50-year-old or something like that. She was a very attractive woman.
But it must have been so...
Here she is in Israel. It was a tremendous experience.
She must have suffered so much when she heard what happened to her husband. And
my mother was become a real introvert. She hardly spoke.
Could you speak to her about... Did you ever speak to her or your sisters about...
She wouldn't talk to me about it.
And your sister?
And my sister couldn't. She was hysterical when you spoke to her. My sister, Tova, was a really very complicated person. She was very... They must have done terrible things to her. But she was very complex personality. I was very close to her. She was one of my closest sisters. She married a lovely man who was an Israeli MP. In that time, he was Israel Glaser. She was married. You can find him in the encyclopedia. She married somebody from Poland, Israel Glaser, Skolnik, and I got a very nice picture there from him. He married her. He was 10 years older than her. Was a good marriage. Had 3 children. But really, he wanted a big family. All his family were murdered in Poland. So he wanted to replace his family. So did my sister wanted to, but she managed to have 3 children, and lovely children. My nephews and nieces. They're in Israel, obviously. All 3 of them live in Israel.
And Miriam, how soon afterwards, I think in 1946, you came to, your sister managed to give a certificate.
We got affidavit. We got right away. We left. My mother said there's no point to stay here anymore. She lost everything, her husband, her children. So we went straight away.
How did you go? Do you know?
We went from Nitra to Bratislava. My sister was already involved right away in Shomer HaTzair when she was 16 or 15, younger. There was a lot of Jewish movement starting in Slovakia, different organization. And Shomer HaTzair was one of the strong ones, because we were Orthodox, but we didn't really understand very much. Eventually came Bnei Akiva as well, but first Shomer HaTzair was the first one to enter enter Slovakia. And my sister, whatever reason, I don't know where she was, somebody, she joined in Bratislava a group, and the group went off eventually to Palestine, near Palestine. We all went together to Palestine. She joined this group, kibbutz near David. I don't know if you heard about the kibbutz, near, Shluchot and Tel Atzvi, nearby.
In the Beit Shean?
Beit Shean. I was there as well. So she joined the kibbutz. In the kibbutz she met my late husband, brother-in-law, lovely guy. He was absolutely amazing. His family, his story is unbelievable. I was adored by brother. I didn't have a father, I'm not a brother. He was older than me. I idolized him. I idealized it to a high level. Must tell you the story because unbelievable story. Israel Glaser, they were in Poland a Zionist group. And secretly, during the war, they started a movement. They were not Shomer, they were probably whatever they were. They heard, the Russian heard about there is some secret Jewish groups here, and they sent a Russian commissar who spoke perfect Yiddish. The commissar investigated them. You know what was that possibly? Investigated this group, and they realized he's not one of them. Want to find out who is the leader, what they're doing. They were all planning to go to Palestine, but it must have been 46 or something. No, a bit earlier, because they were transmitted all to Siberia. The whole bunch of group, because they wouldn't give any information, or the commissar spoke Yiddish, and they all spoke Yiddish from Paul. And somebody told them to be careful. And they were transported to Siberia, and they got life sentence. Without trial, well, those days. Israel Glaser was a quiet man. My brother, a genius, when he was in the council as well. He was very clever. And he, 19-year-old, became friendly with the guards. And he said, we are prisoners here, let us help you.
This was in Siberia?
Siberia.
And this is after the war?
Well, of course. No, during the war, yes, must have been during that period. Yes, must have been 46. So they went working with the Russian guards, he was working in Siberia, and they trusted him. Because he was already a very bright man. And what he did? All got life sentence. And he was working in the office with the guards. And he said, can he work late hours because there's nothing better to do? What he did, he took the documents of all the people imprisoned and changed their life sentence, prison sentence. Can you imagine something? This is the most impressive. So he found out the name of all the people, and he managed during night time, offering free service, to change the life sentence for 6 months or 1 year. They had all life sentence. So he saved all the group in stage by stage. And he was also the first one to open the Warsaw ghetto with Barzilai. I don't know if you heard of Barzilai. Barzilai was a minister already, and he worked with him. He also was a minister. This is another story.
And Miriam, can I ask, how did you get to Palestine? How did you...
Well, when we got the affidavit, we went from Nitra to Bratislava, and from Bratislava we were organized by UNRWA or some organization to get to Paris, to Marseille, and ship a boat, to get on a boat, Annapolis. And he treated like heroes in France, because they saw we are skeletons driving. So we were heroes, and we got to Marseille, and from Marseille we went on a ship called Annapolis, and there we landed it under the British mandate. And I never forget, when the ship landed in Haifa, there was a siren. It reminded me of the siren in Slovakia. I still thought, I couldn't believe we are in a other country. And we were survived. That's the way we survived. We got into Palestine. My sister got us arranged. Then we got a place to live.
And where did you live when you arrived?
First, I lived with my sister in a bedsitter, and then I went to a boarding school. The Jewish agency or somebody must have arranged it.
And your first impressions when you came to Israel, did you feel very connected? Were you...
Well, my late father, we were so close, he always thought he could have gone to Palestine. We go to Palestine, to the Holy Land, where the Messiah comes. That was because it was very Orthodox then. And when you come to Palestine, you have to kiss the ground because you're in the Holy Land. And I was a little child, I kissed the Holy Land. But I did it for understanding, I did for my late father. And then I was in Palestine, a new world, a new life started altogether. It was amazing.
So here we have a picture of you when you...
This is not in Palestine. This is in 1946, before I left.
That's just before you left. Yes.
I'm here with the show. This was before I left to Palestine. Oh, this is much later. This was this. I must have been here. What year is this?
So you were determined to do athletics and to...
Oh yes. Here was... This is where the youth movement started in Israel, in Nitra. I wrote after 1946, soon as liberation, the youth movement arrived from Palestine, and that was in Nitra.
And Miriam, these pictures, these are such gems.
No. This is Israel.
So if you can show, because these are very special as well.
This is... Well, I was in a boarding school for 5 years, from the age of 10 or 11, till 16, 17. Then I got a scholarship to Jerusalem to study. And I had to learn a new language. And these are my friends in a boarding school.
And you were happy when you were in Israel?
Not very happy, but, I missed my mother. She was in Jerusalem. That's another story. And this one was when I was sent to work in Belfast in 1959. I was the first Israeli representative of the government in Northern Ireland, 23-year-old.
The Foreign Office?
Huh?
Were you sent by the Foreign Office?
Was it?
Of Israel?
I'll tell you how it happened. Well, I studied in teaching training college, and I met a woman called Sarah Schwarzman. She may be in Israel, I have in contact, and she was in a course studying with me together in Jerusalem, in Ephrata, Talpiot in Ephrata, I think. I was studying there in training college, and she was a friend of mine, and she lived in Jerusalem, and I lived in Haifa, and I went to visit her one day, and there was somebody there from the Jewish agency, a representative of Jewish agency, and said to Sarah, would I like to send you to Belfast to work for us, organize education, tourism. She said, no, I don't want to go. But my friend who's sitting here, maybe she will go. And I really wanted to go, wanted to spread my wings. I was so confined for such a long time. And this is when I was in Belfast in 1959.
And Miriam, how did you feel representing Israel in Northern Ireland?
Well, I tell you what, as I said, I was in a state of denial. When I was in Israel, there were wars, these are independence wars, the 56-year war. I was in Israel in war. I was brought up constantly in these wars. And I always dreamt freedom. Freedom was, I spread my wings. And of course I met my husband in Belfast, I danced. I was sent to Belfast to work, and I was teaching, and of course I was quite attractive, and I had some friends. I went to, it was called a hop in those days, went to a dance. And there's unfold my love story. It's a long story as well.
And where were you married?
Haifa. I had an agreement with my husband, never worked out. I said to my late husband, I only marry you if we live in Israel. I really loved Israel fiercely. But in spite that I wanted to travel around Europe, what I did, I still always want to live in Israel. When he proposed to me, I said, the family were a great Zionist family anyway, I want to live in Israel. And we planned, but he found it very difficult. He was an actor, he was a podiatrician. He could not actually settle very well.
But you were married for many years.
Well, married in England. We came to England. We had a very hard time first. And we lived in Dublin for a while with my in-laws. And then we came to live in England. And I was a teacher. I was working here. And then, of course, I studied. First, I was only teaching Hebrew. But then I studied other things as well. I was always studying.
And Miriam, how many years were you married?
53.
It's
How long
very
are you
special.
married?
Coming on for 40.
What?
It's going to be 40. Soon we'll be married 40 years.
Well, you are still young. You have to wait for another 20, 30 years.
So Miriam, I just want to show, this is the book that you've written.
Oh, I have to tell you about the play as well.
Love is always the answer.
Well, I thought if I don't write it down, if I don't write it, I will forget it. So I wrote it a few years ago. No, it's nearly 7 years. In 1915, I wrote it. I wrote it before, a bit of diary. And then I decided there's a special reason. I haven't talked to you about my transformation, because I came from a very Orthodox background. And my late father always used to say, in every generation, you change a little bit. And it stuck in me. I don't know what he meant by that. So here, love is always the answer. You see me with a lady who hasn't got a face. Well, people say God hasn't got a face, but she was my inspiration, my teacher. So she was Russian. And the book is divided in two parts. It's about my childhood, about the Holocaust and survival in Israel. Then I studied yoga, or tried to, because I was love sport, and I did physical yoga. But I missed something is lacking in my life still, and I was looking for something. And I knew what I was looking, spiritual journey. And then I met this Russian lady who was my first spiritual teacher, who taught me about meditation and my inner journey. And she was teaching Carl Jung system, what I was very interested in. I studied also for 3 years, therapy, psychotherapy. I did 3-year counseling course. And this is a book that I wrote. It's divided in two parts. My childhood and meeting this lady, Irina Tweedy, what changed my life completely. Because she said, I'm here not to hear about your life. She was not in my childhood. So you came here to find yourself, and I will help you to find yourself. And by that, let's not go to the past. You have to go further. She used an expression, in life you want regression or progression. And I said I want to progress. And progression, then you come with me to Germany. Because she was lecturing for years, and then she spoke 7 languages, by the way. She's an aristocrat, the Queen Mother's cousin. She was a very upper-class lady. Her husband, she married the House of Tweed. And she changed my life. She's what I'm here now. She gave me confidence, self-belief, and I can talk. I wouldn't be able to talk before. And the change took place gradually. She wrote in that big book, Daughter of Fire. She said, you have to get rid of your past to understand the present and the future. And I didn't tell her about my past, but she knew everything about it. Everything. She was so evolved, human being. And she was my teacher for 30 odd years. I'm still working her system.
And Miriam, you're going to be doing a play, a very special play.
Yes, well, because I read my book, I told my story, and it just came about, as we say, to the right time with the right people, the right place. I met somebody who read my book, and he said it would be a good idea, with your permission, to write a play. I got a script here, by the way. And a play is about, again in two parts, my childhood and my transformation. And the play will explain why I am here, to be able to share my life. The maybe people have something to learn from me, I do not know, but if they've got, it is a place called All About Miriam.
And Nigel's very...
And Nigel Cunning, who is the man behind that, he helped me in many ways. And again, my life is full of surprises, time, place and people. I met him at a dinner party 2 years ago, and he does so much for me. He published 3 books for me, putting a play for me. What more can I ask?
Well, Miriam, can I ask, your story is just unbelievable. It really is. It was miraculous. You've gone through so much in your life, and you see you smiling, and it's hard to believe that you're 89. You look so much younger, so incredibly much younger.
Thank you for saying that, because I personally, I work with young people. You see, I promised my teacher I will teach meditation and self-awareness. Self-awareness helped me to understand myself. I can understand other people as well. I feel, when you are surrounded with people, I sometimes say I have nothing to teach. Really, what am I teaching? I cannot say I can label it what I'm teaching. People ask me, what are you teaching? Ivan Pearl, who you interviewed, always, he comes to my group and he always asks me, what are you teaching? I say, if you ask me that question, I cannot answer you. I teach you to be.
This is a lovely picture with,
it's fantastic.
With you and Ivan.
It's 3 years. 3 years. Yes, this is my present. It is a good height. This is Ivan Pearl, who is also a Holocaust survivor. He was in Auschwitz and other camps. And we met in a Holocaust center. There's this cultural Jewish center in London, mainly for the Holocaust survivors. We met there, we became very good friends, and I'd like to share it with you.
And if I can ask you, Miriam, what message do you give? What message do you give to the future generations and to your grandchildren and to your family?
Well, my message is, life is unpredictable. From the past we have to learn to live with the present, to create a better future. Because we cannot forget the past. We may forgive the enemies, because with that feeling you can't live forever to hate. I don't have a feeling of hate. So for the past we have to learn, but we never must forget. We are people who survived pogroms, wars, persecution for always, for the last 3,000 years. My message is, you have to not forget to be yourself and create a better future for yourself and the people you meet. And always try to think positively and try to live a full life.
And Miriam, the title of your book is Love is Always the Answer.
Yes.
It's such a beautiful title.
The title is because...
It's such a wonderful title, and it's such...
Yes, I chose the title. We have many titles. Love is always the answer. Because my teacher said to me one day, she was lecturing in Germany. I went with her, we went to the United Nations, we gave a work. 40 years of United Nations, she and I went to give a talk. It was not in United States, it was in Holland. And I called this book, and she worked first in England, because she was married to an English man, and then her book was translated. She wrote a book book called Daughter of Fire, a Bridgewood Chasm of Fire, and she started running around and talking lectures in Europe. So she asked me to come with her, and I refused to go with her. And being a disobey your teacher is not a very respectable thing to do. Somebody who actually guides you. She said to me, Miriam, or you want to progress or regress. If you regress, get lost.
Sure.
I said, I want to progress. And she went to Germany, and I met Germans, and they were crying on my shoulders, will you forgive me? Will you forgive me? I never forget when I was teaching yoga and other things, and they asked me, forgive me. And I said, I forgive you, but I will never forget. What your parents and ancestors done is unforgivable. I forgive you because you didn't do it, but you cannot forget. And the book is called Love is All the Answer. Only by giving love you can help yourself and other people. And love is a very important. I teaching love. And we work from heart to heart. And we work transmission, transforming people through love.
Wow. So Miriam, I want to thank you. I'm just going to come in. So Miriam, it's been such an honor and a privilege to be here with you. I am so grateful. There are really no words. Really, you just, your whole personality is just, you are so positive, and you've been through a hell. You've lived through a hell with your family, your father dying, your siblings being killed.
Our cousins, 40 cousins.
You could be in a state of eternal depression, but you've taken the other route where you're so positive. But you haven't forgotten your family, and you are an inspiration to all of us, Miriam. You really are. You are. We should all emulate you, because you are so special, and I'm so grateful to you. It's been the biggest honor and privilege, and you should just have a good life, and we say till 120 in good health, and mazel and brocha, and just happiness and smachot and nachas from your grandchildren, and you should continue the most amazing work that you're doing. And to everybody who's watching this, the play, we strongly recommend everybody to watch. This is the first, but there are going to be many other plays, please God. And Miriam is an inspiration to all of us. And Miriam, I'm so grateful to you.
I'm very grateful to meet you as well, but let me give you, is whoever sees 16th of November 2023, the play will be first time performed in a centre DW3 in London. So whoever can come, I'm very happy to see you there.
And please God, there'll be many more plays.
Well, we never know.
Miriam, your story is, like they said in the newspaper, it's with Anne Frank. Everybody knows Anne Frank's story, but your story should also be known. Well, because it's miraculous.
I just said, maybe there are many people like me. It happened too that I was telling my story, and I was asked put on the play. What I hope that people will appreciate and realize that you can live a full life. Also, you have tragedies upon tragedies in your life, and I had plenty of them. I lost my daughter 2 years ago, my only daughter. She left me in legacy 2 lovely granddaughters, and I got a son, thank God. But I tell you what, if I have to live, I know I came to this world. We come to this world with 2 things: to worship God and serve humanity. These are the mission of everybody's life, to serve and to worship. If you worship God, you can help humanity and you can help yourself. So I have got very strong belief that God is there or help me to be on this journey.
Miriam, I cannot thank you enough. And may your daughter's memory be for eternal blessing.
Thank you. But anyway, it was lovely to...
You should just be blessed, Miriam, because you're extremely special.
Thank you so much. The picture with the Sefer Torah or something in his hand is Chaim Tzvi Mannheimer. He was my great-grandfather during the period of Austrian Empire, Franz Joseph II Emperor, and he was in charge of Jewish affairs. In those days, There was already a problem in that area where something was called Neolog and Orthodox. The Neolog Jews were a bit more liberal-minded and Orthodox, and my great-grandfather wanted to unite them. And Franz Joseph II told me, you can do what you like. He gave me the free hand because he was a very broad-minded democratic ruler. Now up there are my grandparents. On my upper two picture is my Moshe Mordechai and Fanny Mannheimer. And below is Gittel and Joseph Pashkus. They're my two grandparents. The bottom one is my mother parents, the top one is my father parents.
And Miriam, how did these pictures survive?
It's a very good question. I cannot tell you, but I got them. I presume somebody must have kept them because it's very strange. I got many photographs on that time. My sister, maybe my sister who went to Palestine, she must have had them. And when we got to Palestine, I got to Palestine before it was State of Israel, 1946. She might have had them. Otherwise, can't see any other way that we would have those pictures. She was about 18-year-old that time.
And these are the only pictures you have of your grandparents?
For my grandparents, that's all what I got. And this was very lucky to find this one. Because there was a Rabbi Kaplan here who had a bookshop, a very Orthodox man, and I met him somewhere socially on a Purim, and somebody introduced me to him that she is a Mannheimer. It meant, not to many people it meant, but somebody in rabbinical circle, it meant something. So he said, I can get you a book of your ancestors, and that's the way I got this first book and the photograph.
Thank you so much, Miriam.